Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to the desktop for another rules breakdown, because we're going to be doing it old school. We're doing it with the proper desktop, with a proper rules book. I've got my World of Darkness D10s. I've got my post-it note just off the side of the screen here with all my page references written on it. So it's kind of fun to be doing it this way again, instead of doing a PDF review, which are a lot easier to do, I have to admit. But we're doing it old school, because this time we're covering CthulhuTech. I've got the rulebook here. It came out from Black Sky Studios in 2007, and it's a cyberpunk type game of the fairly near future, the 2070s, where the Cthulhu mythos has risen and are trying to take over the world in their giant mecha, and humans have giant mecha as well, so they're fighting between them. It's kind of a cool game. It's not quite as crazy as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be completely over the top. It's not that. It's not Pacific Rim type levels. It's kind of like an advanced cyberpunk or Shadowrun type game. So there's a whole load to like in here. Now, as usual, I'm going to need a sample character. So if we turn to page 73, we can see that the game uses templates. And with every template, we've got a sample version. So I'm going to use the Engel Pilot, because it's the first one on a facing page, although there's the Arcanotechnician on the opposite page. But the Engel Pilot's the first one for no other reason than that. But anyway, let's get on and have a look at the rules. And so skills. Well, skills are dealt with on page 49, under tests. So the first thing you need to do is the Games Master needs to decide on a difficulty. And we've got the degrees of difficulty here with ranges within those and standard amounts. So let's say we're just trying the average skill test. The standard amount is 12. So let's take that. Now we need to determine our base and dice. So we look at the character. Let's say we're trying literacy. He's trying to read some information, find something out. So he's a novice at literacy, and that'll be using his intellect. So his base is 5, and he's got a novice skill. Now what does novice skill mean? Well, now we need to go to page 61. And we see levels of expertise. Unskilled characters have no real understanding of the skill, 0 dice. Students have rudimentary understanding of the skill, 1 dice. Novices have basic understanding, 2 dice. Adepts, 3 dice. Experts, 4 dice. Masters, 5 dice. So he's a novice. So he has 2 dice. But he has a base of 5. So what we're doing is now rolling and reading our dice. So we've got 2 dice. We get a 3 and a 4. Now normally you would just be taking the 4 and adding it to your base. So you'd be getting 9. However, there's 2 occasions you can add more dice together. If you roll the same amount, so if you were rolling 3 dice and you got a 9, a 5 and a 5, you can add the 2 5s together to get a 10 instead of taking the 9. But also it deals in sort of poker terms. So if you get a straight, so numbers consecutively, you can add them together. So we've got 7 there. We add it to his base of 5. And that gives us 12, which is exactly the difficulty we needed. So he succeeded. Now, we've also got things like test modifiers. If you want to be just getting on with things, for these types of tasks, just assume you got the result of 7 for your die roll and add that to your base. So just assume you got a 7, add it to whatever, and that's an automatic success if you don't want to be bothering rolling dice. Critical successes are if you beat the target number by 10 or more. Critical failures are when you get 1s on more than half of your dice. Half of your dice or more. And if you are doing a contested roll, so 2 characters are trying to do something against each other, a tug of war, whatever kind of skill roll you're going for, then it's whoever rolls higher wins. You're not rolling its target number, you're just trying to beat each other. So initiative. Well, it's dealt with on page 116, 117. And we've got determining initiative here. Everything has a reflex score, which is an average of agility, intellect, and perception, and normally ranges 1 to 10. And then you're rolling 1 die and adding the result to your reflex score to see who gets the highest. So our Engel Pilot has an agility of 7, intellect of 5, perception of 7, so an average of 6. So we're going to roll 1 dice, we get an 8, so his 6 added to that is 14, which means he goes after anybody who gets 15 or higher before anybody who gets 13 or lower. And we've also got declaring number of actions, which is nothing to do with the initiative roll. It's just a matter of declaring the number of actions and then taking a penalty of -2 to each of his actions during that turn. So a character taking 3 actions suffers a test penalty of -4 to each one of his actions, and so on. Characters choosing to only take 1 action act without penalty. And so combat. Combat's dealt with on page 117, and it's an ordinary contested roll. So you are rolling dice, your opponent targets rolling dice as well. Now, it's probably worth mentioning at this point that I kind of skipped over drama points when I was dealing with skills. For every dice roll, you can spend drama points. Heroes have drama points which allow them to manipulate the storyline, kind of like force points in the old West Endgame Star Wars game, and hero points back in the Price of Freedom role-playing game. And these can be spent to either increase yours or an ally's dice by 1, or penalise an opponent by 1 dice. Now, you can spend any number of these that you want, especially when a group are working against an opponent. They can pretty much buy off the opponent's skill dice, allowing them just to use their base. They don't get to roll any dice at all, making them pretty vulnerable, but not completely vulnerable because they do have a base to use. So they will have a target number that you have to breach. So if they are far more powerful than you, you still have to be rolling at least adequately. But that's how the drama dice work. Otherwise, as I said, it's an ordinary contested roll. And this chart here tells you which defense skill you used. So if you're using armed fighting, you can use dodge, fighting, or armed fighting. If you're using fighting, you can use armed fighting, dodge, or fighting. Armed fighting, you use armed fighting or dodge. All others, you use dodge. So we're going to be shooting a gun in this case. We're going to be using marksman. So his marksman skill is adept. So he has 3 dice. Adept's worth 3 dice. Novice was 2. And that uses his perception, so he has a base of 7. So we're rolling 3 dice. We get 2 2s, adding to a 4, and a 9. So we've got a 9 is the highest, adding to his 7, so he's got 16. And his dodge is adept, and that's using his agility, which is also 7. So he gets a 10 on that one, a 6 and a 2. So his 10 plus 17, 7 equals 17, which means he's dodged this attack. Now, damage is determined on your dice roll. So in this case, when we rolled, we'd failed to hit. But let's say the dice had rolled the other way around, and he'd rolled 1 point higher than his opponent. His result was greater by 1 point, so he gets 1 dice of extra damage. If he got 6 to 10 higher, he'd have got 2 dice. Up to 16 to 20, he'd get 4 dice higher. Now, weapons also do a predetermined amount of damage. So if I slide everything over, we can see various weapons here. Now, some of the smaller ones do a base of no damage, so you have to succeed to do any damage at all. You do +1 by succeeding. But we've got other things here, heavier rifles, etc., which do plus dice of damage. So we'll say that he gets the +1, and he's using this auto pistol, the Peacemaker, which gets +2. So he's going to be rolling 3 dice for his damage. So we're rolling 3 dice for his damage, and this time we're adding them all together. We're not using the poker rules. So we have 11 points of damage there. It's also worth bearing in mind that for melee combat, so armed fighting or fighting, you get a strength modification. So you can get minus damage if you've got low strength, known for average strength, and bonus dice as you go up in strength. So if it's melee combat, the Engel pilot has a strength of 5, which puts him squarely in the no bonus. But it's worth bearing in mind that if you're a high strength character, you might be getting bonus dice in melee combat. And now damage. Well, damage is dealt with on page 118. First of all, we look at armor. Armor has its own ratings. So we've got 2 ratings, trauma and projectile, and we were shooting a pistol. So we need to go back to page 117, and we can see they've got the 2 ratings. The second one, which is for projectile. And these tend to be +1, although there are some +2, +3. So this is how many dice you roll and take away from the damage. So we'll say it's 1. We roll a 9. So the 11 damage becomes 2 points of damage. So that's how armor works. It takes away straight. But let's ignore armor for the damage we're taking at the moment. What we need to do is we need to check the character's vitality. Now, vitality is dealt with on page 65. And basically, it's an average of strength and tenacity plus 5. So looking at our character, strength is 5, tenacity is 7, so an average of that is 6, plus 5 is 11. Exactly the damage we've done. Now, if we look at a character sheet, way back at the back here, we can see we've got wounds. Now, for each number of vitality we do, we move on to the next wound level. So, we've done 11 points of damage, so we are at the flesh wound stage. At 12 points, we'll go into light wounds. At 23 points, we'll go up to moderate, and so on. So for 11 points, we fill up a level until we reach death's door and the character drops. So that's how it works. With each level, you're getting penalties, you're getting minus dice. As you get moderately wounded, it's getting quite severe. At serious wounded, the penalties are quite massive, including your armor being completely gone and you losing an action. So damage is hard to get up. You know, we saw a standard shot there, basically didn't take them out of a flesh wound, but as soon as it starts piling up and getting very, very serious, your character's massively disadvantaged. And healing's dealt with on page 126, 127. Basically, we've got a chart here showing how long it takes to heal up. So we've got the degree of wounding, we've got how long it takes up to naturally heal. From flesh wounds takes 1 week, but if you're getting EMT or physician help, it only takes 3 days. Light to flesh is 1 month or 2 weeks, etc., etc., going down the levels. So if you're at death's door, it'll take you 3 months or 2 months with a doctor to get down to serious and slowly climb your way to fully healed. And advancement. Well, advancement's dealt with on page 79 amongst character development. So we can see that to improve an attribute of 4 or higher by 1 point costs a number of experience equal to the attribute's current rating times 5. So if you're increasing it from 5 to 6, it's going to cost you 25 points. To increase an attribute of 3 or lower, number of experience points to the attribute's current rating times 10. So if you're increasing one from 2 to 3, it's going to cost you 20. Learning a new skill. Once your character completed its training, spend 5 experience to learn the new skill. To develop a skill, develop from student to novice, 10 experience, novice to adept 20, adept to expert 20, and expert to master costs 30. To become specialized, focused in an area and get an additional bonus, 15 experience. To increase Orgon, to obtain new spells in magic, to remove drawbacks or acquire new assets. They all have their costs, and it's all on page 79. So, that is CthulhuTech. Now, when I was looking at these rules initially, I found them very complex because there's a lot of going backwards and forwards in pages. But I imagine once you've created a character and you've got all your things on the character sheet, including all your bonuses, you're not having to look up exactly what a novice skill is, etc., etc. The Games Master will just be coming up with your target number, and he'll learn those very, very quickly, and you'll have all your information on your character sheet of how many dice you're rolling, what your base attributes are, etc., etc. So it'll be far quicker to play than it initially seems from skipping through the book. But otherwise than that, it's an interesting system. It's not the most streamlined I've looked at, but it does have its own quirks, and does seem, as I said, pretty interesting. But anyway, as usual, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.